Hiya and welcome to the second episode of Witchezz Brew. How exciting, the first one of 2015 as well. You're here with me, Dobbs, your witchiness. And if you haven't heard about Witchezz Brew before, let me tell you about it. It's a project set up to spark an honest conversation about music, as well as provide a platform for artists and bands who are creating music that create that conversation and explore, experiment and expresses. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. J.Chambers. He's a Manchester rapper and spoken word artist. Hi Jay, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I know you were travelling down from Manchester, which is quite the journey.
Yeah.
How was it?
It is emotional. I got some sleep though, which was pretty fun.
Cool. I want to first off start off with, how did you come about to making music? Was it something that started from an early age, or was it something that was decided later on? How did it just come to you? How did that happen?
It all started like when I was 8. My mum pulled me aside one day after school and was like, "You need to learn an instrument because it looks good on your CV." Blah 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 blah. And so I ended up learning drums. But then around that time, she started introducing me to hip hop, so acts like De La Soul and the Tribe Called Quest and things like that. And so while I was playing drums, I got to the age of 12 and I wrote my first rap, which was to More Money, More Problems by Biggie.
Okay.
So since an early age, I've always had the drums and the rapping going on. And then at about 16, I started doing some work with bands. Then at 18, when I came back from the States, I decided that it was more the rapping and spoken word side of what to go into rather than the drumming. The drumming was fun, and that was a really good time, but I'm more about the words than the drumming at the moment.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, definitely. And it's great to hear a rapper who's also quite musical as well, because sometimes I feel like you get some rappers who just rap and they don't really understand what goes behind it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you have two projects, Moment of Silence, which is out already, and that came out last year.
Yeah, that came out in, I think it was September last year.
Yeah, and you also have TSOBF, which is coming out soon. What was the inspiration behind the two projects, and also what was the process like, and how similar or different are they?
Okay, so Moment of Silence came about at a time where within the scene in Manchester, I just felt like I was being overlooked, and there was quite a lot of speculation because the last project I put out before that, a mixtape, it did okay, but it wasn't the strongest, and we felt that within our team that it wasn't that strong, but we still put it out, and it was something that we grew and learned from. And so Moment of Silence was really kind of a project to sort of bring about a moment of silence to stop the speculation, stop the negativity, and just make people take me as a serious artist, and it did what it was supposed to do. In terms of the process, Moment of Silence was completely different. I mean, I knew with Moment of Silence I wanted it to be an EP, and so I gave myself 6 tracks, and then I tried and errored different songs until I got the final lineup.
Yeah.
Whereas TSOBF, that's going to be my first full-length album, so that will be like 16 tracks. That's what we're aiming for. So the process is completely different. I'm taking more time out. This time I'm a lot more involved in the beats as well. And so we're literally making sure we do what it says on the tin, because TSOBF stands for the Souls of Black Folk. And so what that title was about was finding like samples, you know, like when you go to like family reunions and things, you have those songs that give you that feeling.
Yeah.
That's what that whole project is about, is finding those samples that bring about something in people and brings out sort of like a nostalgic quality, and that's what hip hop does. Like I imagine when artists like Nas sample James Brown, that takes them back to their childhood, and so that's what I'm trying to create with TSOBF.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah. You also do spoken word as well, and you've been quite not heavy on it, but you featured it quite a lot on your SoundCloud as well. How did you get into spoken word, and do you find it helps when it comes to rapping in terms of techniques and flows and stuff like that?
Yeah, I first got into spoken word poetry when I got put onto the Deaf Poetry Jam videos on YouTube, and I was like, this is decent, like this is something I'd really like to try. And then Aaron, one of the guys from the Manchester scene, he was like pushing me to do it. He's like, you know what, you should try, you'll be really good. First poem that was about like the use of the N-word within hip hop, and I've literally put that out there. That was just like kind of like a semi-rant,
Mm.
and that came out, and then people sort of felt it and were like, oh, this is really good, and then it sort of just led to me writing more, and then
Yeah.
it just sort of went from there.
Do you also think, I don't know, do you think that you'll ever combine the two, like what George the Poet does at the moment and Kate Tempest as well? Do you ever see yourself going in that direction?
Oh yeah, definitely. This album's got a couple of songs like that already.
Okay, very exciting.
Wade in the Water was the first track that properly merged that with the soliloquy at the end, and there's a few other tracks that are kind of that kind of vibe on the album. Definitely, just it's been kind of like a big year, and so there's just so much to fit on there. A lot of my music, been said in the past that I speak a lot about myself, but that's what I know.
Yeah.
You know how to speak about yourself, your perspective, and the area you come up with, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just another guy who's interpreting this around and putting it out there, really.
Exactly, and you don't know who else might interpret it the same way as you and might have a similar perspective as well.
Oh yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things about hip hop. Like, obviously with some of my rhymes I'm quite conscious, and so I can say set lines. Even like when I'll be writing dumb little raps down on my phone, I'll send them to like Lewis or one of the other guys, and I'll be like, tell me what you get from that. And like 9 times out of 10, my meaning is completely different to what they get. And then like you sort of see the other perspectives, and it's really cool to just sit and do that.
Cool.
It takes a lot for somebody to sit there, write a rhyme, record it, and then put it out there. You know, you're essentially telling people your innermost thoughts and feelings. You don't even know who you're talking to half the time. And in terms of people looking down at it from other countries and stuff, I think that's changing. Like, I used to have it when I first started. A lot of the comments would be, "This guy's dope," but for a British kid,
Yeah.
and things like that. Or they wouldn't necessarily expect someone to say some of the things that I say, like being conscious, being from England, because I don't know whether they think that we're silly over here or not completely clued up.
I think a lot of fallacies are sold to the US, like we're all tea drinkers, we're all posh, we're all going to Hogwarts.
I just love it. I love like the speculation. That's what keeps me going. Like, I've always wanted to do better, and that's why with this project it's become a lot more secretive. Like in the past, I used to be my worst enemy for leaking tracks and giving them out to people. But aside from the team, I think you're one of the few people who've heard quite a bit of the project.
Yeah.
Like, we sampled you.
Yeah. It was quite weird. It's a track called Ready. And you should all look out for it, not just because I'm on it, but because it's brilliant and you are pure fire on it. And yeah, when it got sent to me in like its demo stages. I felt quite privileged to hear it at that stage. I was just like, oh, I feel proper important. But yeah, I think that's good within an artist to keep their music to themselves and to their team, because that way, if there's something that needs tweaking, it can be tweaked, and then you'll be happier with the final product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That was something that I learned the hard way with doing the project of the Come Up, and that's something that I've just learned from speaking to some of the elders. Like, I spoke to Connie Conn from Children of Zeus and Broken English. Like, he's one of the big hip hop guys in Manchester, and shout out to Connie Conn. And he gave me some really good advice about like just structuring my flow and just making sure that I'm only putting things out when it's ready. And it's kind of what you needed, like somebody who's done some of the things that you aspire to go and do, to tell you that you're on the right path and that give you some advice. That's what everyone needs, really. I think a lot of good lyricists give up because up in Manchester you're not really supported. Like, you have good people such as yourself who put us on down here, but in terms of promoters and other artists, they don't really show a lot of support. Like, there's only very few artists that manage to come down here and get the same treatment as the bigger artists down here. Like, you've got like Blizzard and the Blizzard, Shotty Horror, and them guys can come down here and do what they need to do, but then other artists have a harder time.
Yeah. I do think there needs to be a gap sort of like built, but not a gap, sorry, a bridge built between the gap from like London and Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Edinburgh, because there's so much there, and I feel like a lot of it just gets focused within their areas, and it's not fair, because like there's so much greatness around, and like we just need to like spread it around and spread love. So you've given me 6 tracks that inspire you and your work, and as always I'll be mixing them, but I just want to talk about them. So talk about them and kind of why you chose them as well. So first up, Kendrick Lamar with I.
Okay, like this for me isn't my favourite Kendrick song, but it's more the sentiment of it. It was like, it's the first record that I've heard in a while that's got mainstream attention that is just completely and utterly positive. Like, every single line is just reaffirming to believe in yourself and, you know, think bigger than your city and your community, and that's what I kind of felt from the track, and it's reflected in the video as well. Like, that looks like just a regular neighbourhood that you'd see in California where he's from, and just regular people, and that was the aspect of it that I liked, because that's the kind of stuff that if I'm one of those people who are fortunate to get to that stage, that I'd like to do. Just regular
What interests me as well is the comparison between I and your work as well, because especially with the TSOBF project, where you were saying about you sampled a lot of tracks that your mum likes, your grandma likes, and your dad likes as well. I samples a Isley Brothers track, and I could have sworn in an interview Kendrick Lamar said something along the lines of he just wanted to take that old school track that everybody will know and just make it into something his own and something positive as well. And I can see like so many comparisons between this and TSOBF as well. Wale, MMG, Under God.
Wale for me is one of my favourite rappers. He was like one of the first to combine the spoken word poetry element with the hip hop, actually on tracks. And so I think it's just a really dope song. He's talking about obviously trying to progress with MMG but keeping his faith, and he also addresses some problems he had with his other label mate on there, and just the feeling of the song is just really real and heartfelt, and that's what resonated with me in it.
Cool. Children of Zeus, who you've mentioned, A Happiness. I've listened to this track and I thought it was brilliant. I was like bopping along to it.
Yeah, there's just something so special about that group. Like, again, the people who are finding those samples that we came up with and just reinventing them. Like, I'd say that they're like at the forefront of Manchester hip hop right now. Children of Zeus. Like, it's such a cool combination to have like 2 legends really. Tyler Daly, who's done a lot of stuff on his own, and then Connie from the Broken English Squadron. Like, it's such a sick collaboration. That's probably one of my favourite songs from them as well. Just the vibe of it, talking about happiness and aiming where you want to go. Again, positive.
Brilliant. Chronix, Eternal Fire.
Chronix, like I going through this phase of like reggae at the moment, and I keep revisiting Chronix's Dread and Terrible album, and that song just really stands out to me. Just like it's tying it in with the Rastafarian beliefs and talking about Selassie and like where dreadlocks people need to take themselves, and that kind of resonated with me.
Brilliant. And you also had Common with Kingdom.
Common, I'm such like a bad stan for Common. Common is like my favourite rapper of all time. Like, we were fortunate enough to meet him. Like,
Oh wow, how was that?
That was like so mad. Like, like I can't even explain. Like, he came out on stage and stuff. Like, did this show, and because it was at Gorilla. Gorilla's quite a small venue. It was like literally like where that wall is. That's how close it was. Then like afterwards, we waited about. Got to speak to him, like say hello and stuff, and then he went on his coach. He had like a National Express coach to just take him to his hotel.
Oh wow.
Before the show, we got to meet his DJ as well, DJ Active, so I got to speak to him and exchange information, and that's someone that was set in communication with musically as well. Which is really
Brilliant,
cool.
brilliant. What is it about Kingdom that really stood out for you?
That sample, like, I don't know if it's actually a sample, to tell you the truth. I think it was a piece of music that they'd written, an original piece of music that they written and composed, and then they sampled that and built the track around it, if I remember correctly from watching the behind the scenes. But yeah, it's just the sample and just how he's describing like some of the catch-22s that people find themselves in Chicago, and the video by Hype Williams, I think it is, again just reflects that, and it's just so gritty after years of having a light-hearted comment. It's cool to hear him go back to his grittier, earlier sound. And that's what I really liked about it.
And last but not least, Etta Bond, King to Be. I am a huge fan of Etta Bond. Yeah.
I found that track Through You.
Okay.
You put it on your blog, and then I remember I was just listening to it. I think it was in a mix that you did or something.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to it, and I was like, who the hell is this? Like, oh, Etta Bond, that's it, Etta Bond. And I was like, oh yeah, this is sick. And then I checked out, is it Cool Urban Talent Project?
Yeah.
I did that, and that was really good. And that's something that I bump on the daily.
It's for me, like, that kind of project, called Urban New Talent, was just her at her best. It was just, there was so many influences going out, and I think her and Raph Riley, who's her producer, who she always produces with, are just kind of like the British version of Aaliyah and Timbaland, but on a more grittier scale.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I love her tone. Everything in that project, it was just completely stands out. And for a free project as well, you wouldn't expect that quality.
Yeah.
Like, she could have put that out on iTunes and it would have done completely well.
Yeah.
I fully rate that project.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming down and taking the time out to chat to me. It's been brilliant. I've loved every single moment of it, and especially where you got into the nitty gritty of the UK hip hop scene and how it's all merging together and stuff like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's brilliant. Make sure you check out J.Chambers' SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/JCMCR. You can get the Moment of Silence project for free, and TSOBF, which will be out very, very soon, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. For more updates on J.Chambers, though, you can catch him on the Twitter, which I'll be linking below as well. And I want to say thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Witchezz Brew. I'll be back very, very soon for another episode, but for now, you can watch the first video here. You can also check out the Witchezz Brew radio show, which is broadcasted out on breaklondon.co.uk every Friday between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, I believe it's called. And also, I have just launched the new Witchezz Brew site, which is all very exciting, and it has a whole host of stuff. It has all the YouTube shows, it has all the radio shows and mixes, and it also has a lot of think pieces, blogging and reviews and stuff like that. So make sure you go check that out on witchezbrew.net. I'll see you shortly.